Every day we wake up ready to face the world, and yet, deep inside, there's this nagging feeling, a longing for validation. Why do we crave approval from others? Is it because we think it defines our worth? Imagine a life where you break free from that need. Picture yourself walking confidently, unshaken by opinions, living authentically. It sounds liberating, doesn't it? But let's pause for a moment. What if I told you that seeking approval is like chasing shadows? The more you chase, the more elusive it becomes. You wake up one day and you realize you've built your identity around what others think. What happens when their approval fades? You're left with a hollow shell, feeling lost. This isn't just about self-esteem, it's about reclaiming your power. How often do you hold back your true self, fearing judgment? What if you could let go of that fear? Imagine the freedom of being unapologetically you. Embracing your uniqueness regardless of others' opinions. Can you feel that shift? It's time to confront this internal battle. It's time to stop seeking permission to live your life. Are you ready to take the plunge? Let's dive deeper. If you're looking for more emotional balance, clarity in decision-making, and want to learn how to handle life better, this content is for you. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because with each video you'll grow stronger on the inside and see life with greater wisdom. Understanding the need for approval. I've often found myself reflecting on why we, as human beings, seem to crave validation from others. It's as if there's this intrinsic wiring in us that pushes us to seek out nods of approval, whether from friends, family, or even strangers. I remember a time when I posted a picture online, and the moment I hit send, my heart raced not from excitement, but from the anticipation of likes and comments. It struck me, why do I care so much about what others think? Digging deeper, it became clear that this need for approval often stems from our formative years. Maybe it was the praise from parents for good grades or the recognition from peers in school that planted this seed. Each compliment or acknowledgement became a building block of my self-worth. Unfortunately, it also set up a precarious balance, where my self-esteem hinged on others' perceptions. I started to realize that understanding this need was the first step in reclaiming my own narrative. As I navigated through adulthood, I noticed that this quest for validation didn't just evaporate. It morphed and adapted, manifesting in various aspects of my life, career, relationships, and even my hobbies. The truth is, the more I searched for external validation, the more I felt lost within myself. It's a paradox, really. The more I sought approval, the less authentic I felt. I began to ask myself if my desires were genuinely mine or merely a reflection of what I thought others expected of me. The irony is that in a world so focused on individualism, we often mold ourselves to fit into boxes defined by others. I could see friends, colleagues, and even family members doing the same. We chase likes, shares, and comments as if they're the currency of our self-worth. It's a cycle that feeds on itself, each validation leading to more dependence on external approval. It's exhausting, and yet, it's a trap that many of us find ourselves in. So, what if we could shift this narrative? What if we could understand our need for approval not as a flaw, but as a common human experience? By acknowledging this aspect of ourselves, we can begin to peel back the layers and understand that it's okay to want validation while also working towards finding that validation from within. Emotional impacts of the pursuit of approval. The emotional toll of constantly seeking approval is something I can't overlook. For a long time, I didn't even realize how deeply this pursuit affected my self-esteem. There were days when I would feel on top of the world after receiving compliments, but as soon as the applause faded, so did my joy. It was like riding a roller coaster of emotions, and I was strapped in for the ride without realizing that I had the power to unbuckle myself. I remember a particularly tough week when I didn't receive the recognition I was hoping for at work. It felt as if my worth had crumbled overnight. The lack of acknowledgement led to feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt that spiraled into anxiety. I began questioning my skills and contributions, feeling invisible in a sea of colleagues who seemed to thrive on praise. This emotional roller coaster made me realize just how fragile my self-esteem was, tethered to the whims of others' opinions. This emotional dependency on external validation can lead to a cycle of negative self-talk. I found myself caught in a loop of comparing my achievements to those around me, which only deepened my insecurities. It's a vicious cycle that can leave scars on our mental well-being. The more we seek approval, the more we allow others' judgments to shape our self-image. I realized that breaking this cycle was crucial for reclaiming my emotional health. It's essential to recognize that the impacts of seeking approval extend beyond just our self-esteem. They seep into our relationships, often creating a facade that hinders genuine connections. When I was too focused on being what others wanted, I lost touch with who I really was. Friendships that could have been authentic became strained as I tried to navigate the expectations of others. This realization was a wake-up call. I needed to prioritize my emotional well-being over the fleeting satisfaction of approval. Ultimately, the emotional impacts of seeking approval are profound. They shape our perceptions, cloud our judgments, and if left unchecked, can lead to a life that feels inauthentic. By acknowledging these effects, we can start to cultivate a healthier relationship with ourselves, one that doesn't rely on external validation for self-worth. The influence of society and social media. Living in today's world, the influence of society and social media on our need for approval is undeniable. It's as if we're constantly bombarded with images and messages that dictate what success, beauty, and happiness should look like. I've spent countless hours scrolling through feeds, feeling a mix of inspiration and inadequacy. It's a double-edged sword. While these platforms offer a space for expression, they also amplify our desire for validation in a way that can be suffocating. I remember a time when I came across a post from a friend who seemed to be living the perfect life. It sparked a whirlwind of emotions, admiration mixed with jealousy. I found myself questioning my choices, wondering if I was doing enough with my life. The curated nature of social media creates a distorted reality where we often compare our behind-the-scenes to everyone else's highlight reels. The pressure to conform to these idealized standards can be overwhelming. Moreover, the instant feedback loop that social media provides can further entrench our need for approval. The dopamine rush from likes and comments can be addictive, leading us to chase that validation even more fervently. I noticed that I would refresh my notifications repeatedly, seeking that fleeting moment of affirmation. It's a modern-day addiction that can erode our sense of self if we're not careful. This societal pressure also seeps into our everyday interactions. Whether it's dressing a certain way to fit in or adopting trends that aren't true to ourselves, the need for approval can often compromise our authenticity. I found myself in situations where I altered my opinions or behaviors just to align better with what I thought others expected of me. It's disheartening to realize that, at times, I was more concerned about fitting in than being true to myself. In a world that often prioritizes external validation, it's essential to reclaim our authenticity. By recognizing the influence of society and social media, we can begin to question the standards we've been conditioned to accept. It's a journey towards self-discovery, where our worth isn't measured by likes, shares, or the approval of others, but by our own sense of identity and purpose. Authenticity versus conformity. In the struggle between authenticity and conformity, I've often found myself at a crossroads. There's a certain allure to fitting in, to wearing the same mask as everyone else, but at what cost? The moments I've chosen conformity over authenticity have left me feeling empty, as if I were playing a role in someone else's script. It's a realization that has pushed me to confront the true essence of who I am. I remember a time when I was at a gathering, surrounded by friends who all seemed to be on the same page regarding a trending topic. I could feel the pressure to agree, to laugh at the same jokes, and to nod along. But inside, I felt a tug-of-war between my true feelings and the desire to fit in. Ultimately, I chose to voice my dissent, and while it was uncomfortable, it felt liberating to express my genuine thoughts. That experience taught me that authenticity often requires courage, especially in a world that rewards conformity. The difference between being true to ourselves and adapting to others' expectations can sometimes be blurred. I've often found myself questioning whether my choices are genuinely mine or merely reactions to external pressures. It's a delicate balance that requires constant self-reflection. I've learned that embracing authenticity means standing firm in my beliefs and values, even when they diverge from the norm. However, this journey isn't without its challenges. There have been times when my authenticity has led to conflict or isolation. It's disheartening when those around us don't understand or accept our true selves. Yet, I've come to realize that while conformity may offer temporary comfort, authenticity fosters deeper connections. The friends I've made through shared values and genuine interactions are far more fulfilling than those built on superficial agreements. Ultimately, the path to authenticity is a personal journey, one that requires introspection and courage. By prioritizing our true selves over the need to conform, we can cultivate a life that resonates with who we are at our core. It's a reminder that while the world may push us to fit in, it's our uniqueness that truly enriches the tapestry of life. Developing self-confidence. Building self-confidence has been a transformative journey for me, one that I've approached with both curiosity and determination. It's fascinating how self-confidence can ebb and flow, often swayed by external factors like approval from others. I realized that to cultivate a sense of self-assurance, I needed to shift my focus inward. This meant examining my strengths, acknowledging my achievements, and embracing my flaws. One strategy that has greatly helped me is setting small, achievable goals. I remember when I decided to tackle a public speaking event, something that terrified me. Instead of aiming for perfection, I focused on preparing thoroughly and celebrating small victories along the way. Each successful presentation boosted my confidence and reminded me that I was capable of more than I had initially believed. It was a powerful realization that confidence is built through experience and practice, not just innate ability. Another essential aspect of developing self-confidence is learning to silence the inner critic. I've had to confront that nagging voice that often tells me I'm not good enough or that I'll fail. Mindfulness and positive affirmations became my allies in this battle. Whenever I caught myself spiraling, the role of fear of judgment. You know, that nagging voice in the back of your head that whispers you're not good enough? Yeah, that's the fear of judgment talking. It's like a shadow that looms over every decision we make. I've had my fair share of moments where I found myself hesitating, paralyzed by the thought of what others might think. Whether it was choosing a career path, expressing my opinions, or even wearing that shirt I really liked, the fear of judgment often held me back. It's almost comical when you think about it, how our minds can create an entire scenario of judgment from a mere glance or an offhand comment. This fear can be a powerful force. It limits our actions and decisions in ways we often don't realize. I remember a time when I wanted to share my poetry at an open mic night but didn't. What if they laugh? I thought. What if they don't get it? So I stayed quiet. That fear of being judged was more potent than my desire to express myself. It's a common thread in many of our lives that reinforces the need for validation. We often prioritize others' opinions over our own desires, and that can be a heavy burden to carry. Moreover, this fear doesn't just pop up in social situations. It seeps into our professional lives too. I've seen colleagues who could have been great leaders hold back their ideas during meetings, fearing they'd be shot down or ridiculed. The irony is that this fear often creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we don't speak up, we miss opportunities, and when we miss opportunities, we reinforce the belief that we aren't worthy of being heard. It's a vicious cycle that can wear down our confidence over time. It's essential to recognize that the judgments we fear often say more about the person judging than about us. Most people are so caught up in their own insecurities and fears that they don't have the bandwidth to focus on us. Once I realized that, it was like a weight lifted. I started to ask myself, what impact does their opinion really have on my life? It's not always easy to change this mindset, but it's liberating when we stop allowing the fear of judgment to dictate our choices. Working through this fear takes practice. I found it helpful to gradually expose myself to situations where judgment could occur. Starting small, like sharing a thought in a casual conversation, helped me build resilience. Over time, I realized that most people are more supportive than I initially believed. The more I practiced stepping out of my comfort zone, the less power that fear held over me. The relationship between self-acceptance and happiness. Self-acceptance is one of those buzzwords we hear a lot about, but it took me a while to understand its true significance. It's easy to say we accept ourselves, but doing so authentically is a whole different ballgame. I remember the days when I would scroll through social media, comparing my life to the seemingly perfect lives of others. In those moments, I lost sight of who I was and what made me unique. When I finally embraced my flaws and quirks, I noticed a shift in my overall happiness. The link between self-acceptance and happiness is profound. When we accept ourselves, we free ourselves from the relentless pursuit of external validation. I used to chase after compliments and approval, thinking they would fill some void within me. But the reality is, no amount of validation could ever replace the sense of peace that comes from truly accepting who I am. It's like finding a cozy sweater on a cold day, it just feels right. Self-acceptance also fosters resilience. When I learned to appreciate my strengths and weaknesses, I became less reactive to criticism. Instead of crumbling under the weight of someone's negative opinion, I could calmly assess whether it held any truth or if it was merely a reflection of their perspective. This shift allowed me to focus on my growth rather than seeking approval from others, leading to a more fulfilling life. Moreover, self-acceptance paves the way for authentic relationships. When we are comfortable in our own skin, we attract people who appreciate us for who we are, not who we pretend to be. I found that my connections with others deepened when I stopped wearing masks. Being genuine allows for vulnerability, and that's where real emotional intimacy happens. It's a beautiful cycle. The more I accepted myself, the more I attracted people who accepted me in return. The journey to self-acceptance isn't always smooth sailing. It requires introspection and patience. I started journaling to explore my thoughts and feelings more deeply. This practice helped me identify the parts of myself I struggled to accept. Over time, I learned to embrace them, realizing that they contributed to my unique identity. Ultimately, self-acceptance is about recognizing that we are enough, just as we are, and that realization is a cornerstone of true happiness. Techniques for practicing disapproval. Disapproval, it's a scary word, isn't it? Yet, learning to navigate through it can be one of the most liberating experiences of our lives. I used to shrink at the thought of someone disapproving of my choices. Whether it was my career, lifestyle, or even my taste in music, I felt like I had to seek approval from everyone around me. But the day I decided to practice disapproval was a turning point for me. One technique that worked wonders for me was reframing my mindset. Instead of viewing disapproval as a personal attack, I began to see it as an opportunity for growth. For instance, if someone didn't like my approach to a project, I would ask myself, what can I learn from their perspective? This shift allowed me to detach my self-worth from the judgments of others. I learned that disapproval doesn't diminish my value, it simply reflects a difference in opinion. Another method I found helpful is to engage in small acts of defiance. This might sound trivial, but doing things that I genuinely enjoyed, like wearing bright colors when everyone else opted for neutrals, helped me build resilience against disapproval. Each time I chose to embrace my preferences, I felt a sense of empowerment. It was like reclaiming my identity one small choice at a time. Additionally, seeking out supportive communities can make a world of difference. When I surrounded myself with people who celebrated authenticity, it became easier to withstand disapproval. I began to realize that not everyone's opinion mattered, and those who truly cared about me accepted my choices wholeheartedly. This support system acted as a buffer against the sting of disapproval, reinforcing my belief in my own decisions. Practicing disapproval isn't just about accepting negative feedback, it's also about learning to say no to things that don't serve us. I often found myself overcommitting, trying to please everyone around me. But once I learned to prioritize my own needs and desires, I began to experience a newfound sense of freedom. It's a tricky balance, but setting boundaries is a crucial step in breaking free from the need for validation. The importance of setting boundaries. Setting boundaries can feel daunting. I used to think that saying no was synonymous with being selfish. However, I learned that establishing limits is essential for maintaining my mental and emotional well-being. It's not about shutting people out, it's about creating a space where I can thrive without the weight of others' expectations. One of the most significant lessons I learned was the art of prioritizing my own needs. I remember a time when I felt overwhelmed by commitments, friends, family, work. I was stretched too thin and it took a toll on my mental health. It was then that I realized that by constantly saying yes, I was neglecting my own well-being. I started to practice saying no when I felt overwhelmed, and surprisingly, it didn't lead to chaos. Instead, it opened up space for self-care and reflection. Setting boundaries also means being clear about what I will and won't tolerate in relationships. I've had my share of toxic friendships where I felt drained rather than uplifted. Once I recognized that I had the power to choose who I surrounded myself with, I began to distance myself from those who didn't respect my boundaries. It was liberating to realize that I could prioritize my mental health over the fear of disappointing others. Moreover, communication is key when it comes to boundaries. I found that being open with those around me about my needs helped foster understanding. When I communicated clearly, I noticed that people were often more receptive than I anticipated. It's a two-way street. When I respect others' boundaries, they are more likely to respect mine in return. Establishing boundaries isn't a one-time task, it's an ongoing process. I've learned to regularly check in with myself and assess whether my boundaries are still serving me. Are there areas where I feel overwhelmed again? Am I still prioritizing my well-being? By continually evaluating my limits, I can ensure that I'm living authentically and not succumbing to the pressures of others' expectations. The influence of past experiences. Our past experiences shape us in ways we often overlook. I've come to realize that the need for approval can often be traced back to our childhoods and the relationships we formed. For instance, if we grew up in an environment where love was conditional, where approval was linked to achievements, we may carry that mentality into adulthood. I know I did. It's a fascinating yet complicated web of influences that can dictate how we perceive ourselves. Reflecting on my past, I noticed patterns in my relationships. I often sought validation from partners, friends, and even colleagues, constantly trying to prove my worth. It was a learned behavior, rooted in experiences where my value was tied to my performance or the opinions of others. Understanding this connection was a revelation for me. It was like peeling back layers of building a positive social circle. I've come to realize just how crucial it is to surround myself with people who genuinely support my authenticity. You know, the kind of friends who appreciate you for who you are, rather than who they want you to be. There's something incredibly liberating about having a circle that champions your true self. It's like finally taking a deep breath after holding it for too long. These connections allow me to express my thoughts and feelings freely, without the fear of judgment or ridicule. When I look back at times when I felt the need for validation, I see that it was often tied to the people I was spending time with. Friends or acquaintances who constantly critiqued or compared me to others only fueled my insecurities. However, cultivating relationships with those who uplift and encourage me has been transformative. These individuals remind me that it's okay to be imperfect and that my worth isn't contingent upon meeting someone else's expectations. Creating this positive circle hasn't been a walk in the park, though. It required me to let go of some toxic relationships that drained my energy and confidence. It was tough, but I realized that the emotional cost of holding on to those connections far outweighed the benefits. By choosing to invest in relationships that celebrate my uniqueness, I've noticed a significant boost in my self-esteem and overall happiness. Moreover, engaging with supportive friends has opened up avenues for personal growth. They challenge me to step outside my comfort zone, encouraging me to pursue passions that I might have otherwise brushed aside due to fear of judgment. With them, I've explored new hobbies and interests, discovering parts of myself that were previously hidden under layers of self-doubt. In essence, building a positive social circle has been a game changer. It reminds me daily that I don't need to seek approval from the world outside when I am already surrounded by people who celebrate my individuality. This supportive network acts as a cushion, softening the blows of external validation and reinforcing the belief that I am enough just as I am. The role of vulnerability. Vulnerability can feel like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's terrifying to expose the raw, unfiltered parts of ourselves to others. On the other hand, I've learned that embracing vulnerability can actually free us from the shackles of needing approval. When I started allowing myself to be vulnerable, I noticed a shift in my relationships. Instead of trying to paint a perfect picture of who I was, I began sharing my struggles, fears, and insecurities with those close to me. Initially, I was apprehensive. What would they think? Would they still accept me if they saw my imperfections? But to my surprise, being vulnerable fostered deeper connections. It created a safe space where others felt encouraged to share their authentic selves as well. This mutual sharing of vulnerabilities has enriched my relationships and has created a sense of belonging that I hadn't experienced before. Moreover, vulnerability has taught me that it's okay to not have everything figured out. By openly discussing my challenges and failures, I've learned to view them as part of my journey rather than as sources of shame. This shift in perspective has been liberating. Instead of seeking validation for my successes, I now realize that my worth isn't tied to my achievements, but rather to my willingness to show up as my true self, flaws and all. One of the most profound lessons I've learned through vulnerability is the power of acceptance. When I allow myself to be seen, I'm not just seeking approval, I'm embracing the entirety of who I am. This acceptance has a ripple effect, making me less concerned about how others perceive me. I've found that the more I accept my vulnerabilities, the less I feel the need for external validation. Ultimately, vulnerability is about courage. It's about daring to be seen and allowing others to witness our authentic selves. Through this process, I've discovered that there's a profound strength in vulnerability. It not only liberates me from the constant chase for approval but also enriches my relationships, paving the way for deeper connections based on authenticity and acceptance. Changing mindset. Reprogramming limiting beliefs about approval has been one of the most significant journeys in my life. Like many, I grew up with the ingrained notion that my worth was closely tied to the opinions of others. It took time, but I began to understand that these beliefs were not my own. They were societal imprints that I had internalized. Recognizing this was the first step toward changing my mindset. I started reflecting on the thoughts that would often crop up when faced with decisions. Would I wear that outfit? Would I share my opinion in a meeting? Each time, I noticed a familiar voice whispering that I needed to fit in to gain approval. Instead of simply accepting these thoughts, I began challenging them. I would ask myself, why do I care what they think? This simple question became a powerful tool in shifting my perspective. Over time, I began to replace those limiting beliefs with empowering affirmations. I started telling myself that my value is inherent and not dependent on external validation. This practice has been transformative. Each affirmation I repeated gradually chipped away at the fear of judgment, allowing me to embrace a more authentic version of myself. Additionally, I sought inspiration from those who embodied this mindset. I read books and listened to podcasts about self-acceptance and authenticity. Hearing stories of others who had navigated similar paths reassured me that I wasn't alone in this journey. It also reinforced the idea that seeking approval is a common struggle, but it doesn't have to define my life. As I continued to challenge my old beliefs and reinforce new ones, I noticed a shift in how I approached life. I became more willing to take risks, to express my opinions, and to pursue my passions without the weight of external judgment. The journey of changing my mindset has not been a linear process, but with each small step, I've moved closer to a life unburdened by the need for constant approval. The practice of gratitude. In my quest to lessen the need for external validation, I discovered the transformative power of gratitude. It might sound cliché, but taking a moment to appreciate what I have has genuinely shifted my perspective. Gratitude has a unique way of grounding me in the present and reminding me of the abundance in my life, making the opinion of others feel less significant. I started a daily gratitude journal, jotting down 3 things I was thankful for each day. At first it felt a bit forced, but over time it became a cherished ritual. This practice encouraged me to focus on the positive aspects of my life, rather than what I lacked or what others thought of me. As I reflected on my blessings, I began to see that my worth wasn't about fitting into someone else's mold. It was about recognizing the unique gifts I brought to the table. Moreover, gratitude helped me cultivate a sense of contentment. Instead of constantly seeking approval or validation from others, I found joy in acknowledging my achievements, no matter how small. Celebrating my own successes became a powerful antidote to the need for external affirmation. I realized that I could derive fulfillment from within, rather than relying on the opinions of others to define my self-worth. Practicing gratitude has also shifted how I view my relationships. I've become more appreciative of those who support and uplift me, rather than fixating on those who don't. This change in focus has strengthened my connections and fostered a sense of community. I've learned to express my gratitude openly, which not only enriches my relationships but also reinforces the idea that I don't need others' approval to feel valued. Ultimately, embracing gratitude has been a profound journey toward self-acceptance. It has taught me to appreciate who I am and what I have, reducing the incessant need for validation from the outside world. Gratitude grounds me, reminding me that I am enough just as I am. The pursuit of personal purpose. Finding a personal purpose has been a transformative experience that overshadowed my previous need for external approval. When I embarked on this journey of self-discovery, I quickly realized that having a clear sense of purpose gave my life direction and meaning, reducing my reliance on validation from others. It became clear that when I am aligned with my purpose, the opinions of others matter less. I began by reflecting on what truly resonated with me. What were my passions? What did I care about deeply? This exploration involved a lot of self-reflection, trial and error, and even some moments of frustration. However, each step brought me closer to understanding what I wanted to contribute to the world. It was empowering to realize that my unique experiences and perspectives could serve a greater purpose. As I delved deeper into my purpose, I found that it often intersected with service to others. Whether it was through mentorship, volunteering, or advocating for causes I believed in, I discovered that contributing to something larger than myself created a sense of fulfillment that external validation could never provide. This sense of contribution became my driving force, helping me to focus on what truly mattered. Furthermore, aligning my actions with my purpose brought clarity to my decisions. Rather than seeking approval for every choice I made, I began to ask myself if those choices aligned with my goals and values. This shift in mindset allowed me to be more decisive and confident. I was no longer swayed by the fear of judgment, as I knew I was on a path that felt authentic to me. In essence, the pursuit of personal purpose has been a profound antidote to the need for external approval. It has provided me with a sense of direction, fulfillment, and clarity that I previously sought from others. By focusing on what truly drives me, I've learned to appreciate my individuality and the unique contributions I can make to the world, free from the constraints of seeking validation. So here's the deal. When you stop seeking approval from others, you reclaim your power. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that your worth isn't tied to likes, comments, or what someone else thinks of you. How would that change the way you approach your day? Think about it. Every time you catch yourself craving validation, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this opinion shaping my reality or am I allowing it to? Remember, the only approval you truly need is your own. Now picture your life as a canvas. Would you let someone else dictate the colors you use? No way. You are the artist here, and it's time to paint boldly. As you move forward, I challenge you. This week, take one step towards embracing your authentic self. Share your thoughts, your dreams, your quirks just as they are. And while you're at it, drop a comment below. What's one thing you're going to do to stop seeking approval? Let's spark a conversation. Remember, the path to wisdom isn't always easy, but it's oh so rewarding. Stay curious, stay strong, and keep exploring the depths of stoicism with me. Until next time.